the absence of revelation actually has in it the secret of the essence. That's because the essence is that which is beyond revelation. The only thing is it's usually cold. It's usually something that reflects an absence of God. Getting the icicle to shine is basically the Baal Shem Tov showing us this new way that you could actually reveal the godliness even in the etzem, which is not an aspect of Hashem's revelations. It's actually a revelation of His etzem, His essence. As we spoke about yesterday, it's a deep topic. Anyway, this is the Indian of a goof, nenem in a goof, that the body benefits from the other body, that the body of Hashem, so to speak, which is His essence, it has benefit. It specifically shines up in the avoda of the goof, not the avoda of the neshama. So let's take it from page 413, the end of it, chapter 5. Ketzad nitan lafuch as a goof. How do we do it? How can you transform the body? To transform this icicle into a burning icicle, to take this coarse physicality and turn it into open and obvious kedusha. And again, we're trying to do this that the body itself does it, as opposed to using the light of the neshama to brighten it up and to harm and to make it godliness. Remember, we said the idea of Teves versus the other winter months is that there's a little bit of light in the other winter months, which means even though they're generally working with the body, but they're working with the body in the sense that the soul will sort of brighten up and make the body refined. Whereas we said the Teves, which is the month without any light, we're not looking for the soul to brighten up the body. We're working with the body itself, that the body itself, without any help from the soul, can essentially show its own godliness. And if you recall the deep concept, we said that two ways of understanding the tzimtzum, right? That on one hand, the usefulness of the tzimtzum is that it shows us like a stronger level of light, because light that has to break through the tzimtzum is essentially showing a sort of panemius of the light, versus that the tzimtzum itself is already the goal. In other words, the tzimtzum is not there in order to show us a strong level of light, which would be sort of the concept of the soul working on the body and therefore elevating the body. That really only serves to bring out special powers of the soul. So the idea of the work of the body in the winter months could still be seeing the body as a secondary thing. That yes, I'm doing work on my body, but I'm using my soul to work on my body. And therefore my soul is like gaining an extra strength that it wouldn't normally find without facing the resistance of this body. That's a great vort for the other winter months. But when you're dealing with Teves, there's no concept of like trying to highlight the greatness of the light. There's no light to talk about. We're just working with the body itself. And therefore, the concept is that we're looking at the tzimtzum not as a means to an end, a means to bring out greater light, but the tzimtzum is the essence of God, and we want to reveal that in and of itself. And that's the meaning of Tevis. How do we do that, essentially? That it's not done a refinement of the body through the medium of the soul, through the intermediary of the soul, but that you're going to work on the body itself. That's the question. Hezber lakachu, and to explain, Sha'adu Rabbah. On the contrary, dafka guf kashla atzmusa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't worry, the goof can handle itself. The goof is not left alone without this poor goof needing the soul to elevate it. The goof is the boss. The goof is connected with the essence of God. It actually has a higher koach. Haneshama b'mohusa kashur la'or v'gilui. Why? Because the neshama, in its very nature, is connected with light and revelation. That's what the soul is. It's just basically like a revelation of God. And therefore, its whole connection to godliness, right, is through this revelation, what we call Gilui Or. What does that mean? It means that the aspect that the soul is able to wield. You know, the soul is a God revealer. Thank God for the soul. It's there to show you God. But what aspect of God is it there to show you? Since it itself is like a bright and shiny revelatory agent, that's a symbol that the level of godliness that it's able to get its hands on are the bright and shiny levels of God, which are called the Gilui, right? So in other words, even though it can wield godliness, it can only wield a limited measure of godliness. It can only wield the Gilui. Is anyone following me? Besides Yeshua Menachem and Yochanan? Anybody else following me?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Let's keep going.
All right, well, I'm having fun.
Yeah.
What we're saying is the soul. Welcome back, Rafi.
Rafi.
Somebody called me today looking for you, so you're in demand. I'll let you know afterwards. So the soul. You were saying, like, how is the body ever going to find godliness without the aid of the soul? We said, on the contrary, the body has an upper hand when it comes to finding godliness. Why? Because the soul, being that it's an agent of light, it actually can only wield the levels of God, which are called light, which are called Gilui. Lu'umazos bagufa gashmi. On the other hand, the physical body of a Jew, yeshna b'chira shel atzmusi yisbarech. It has something going for it that the soul does not have, which is called the choice of God's essence, Hashem's essential choice. Let's look at that for a second. Bachar bana mikol amim, right? We say that Hashem chose the Jews. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, we mean that he chose the body of a Jew, not the soul. Why can't we say he chose the soul of a Jew? Noam?
The soul of a Jew is
Vastly superior to the soul of even the angels.
Jewish supremacy.
Jewish supremacy. The soul of the Jew is vastly superior even to the angels, let alone the goyim, the animals. It's vastly superior to ministering angels whose wisdom spans infinite worlds. What this soul of the Jew is something totally out there, outrageous. So in other words, it comes from the Gilohim of Hashem. It comes from the Orein Sof. So therefore, we're going to say Hashem's sitting around choosing. If I put a gold dish of golden coins in front of you and sand, and I said choose, it's not called choice. In Lashon HaKodesh, we do not call that free choice because you're led to the obvious thing. Free choice has to be when all things are equal. That it's literally just a choice out of your free choice. In which case, specifically the body of the Jewish people, which is essentially nidma b'chitzoni yuso, at least externally, it looks exactly like all other physical objects. So Hashem says, I want those physical objects to be harnessing these wondrous souls. And he just chose a certain pieces of physical flesh and matter out of a, who knows why, it doesn't make any sense. Free choice is beyond comprehension. That's the whole point. Comprehension works when you have two not equal things. Then I'll use my intelligence to choose the one that's better. But when they're exactly equal things, your comprehension and your rationale is not your friend over here, because you can't use rationale to make a choice of that nature. There's no difference between them. So where does the choice come from? Deep. It's similar. We learned the Purim Maimarim. We talk about the idea of a lottery, right? That it's like it might as well just be throw a lottery. But the difference between a lottery and free choice is that the lottery, you're giving your free choice away to some outside force called the lottery. And therefore, it even kind of comes from the same principle that there's no logic involved. But the weird thing is that you don't have to throw a lottery. You can just choose one. It's like the lottery in your own self. But that comes from some weird, undescribable, essential place inside of you, which is called your essence. Don't ask me why. I decided that's what I want. And so that I, which is beyond logic, it's even beyond lottery, is what's found in the body of a Jew, which is basically this wondrous thing that, again, we find similar to what we said yesterday. Question. The body of the Jew. Well, I mean, I guess you could say that in a certain sense, Gashmias is all intrinsically already kind of a very high valued thing, because we said yesterday that anything which is spiritual, it defines itself by its understanding. And therefore, you're not even a contendant in the holding God department, because God is not held by comprehension. No thought can grasp him at all. But so where can it be held? In a place that doesn't even pretend to hold him, which is Gashmias. So the physical world already is kind of like somewhat fit to be chosen, let's say. But amongst all the physical things that are in the world, he chooses the bodies of Jews. So in other words, not only do they have physicality going, which basically makes them no longer rationally better or worse than anyone else, but now that he actually chooses, because he's set up a playing field where there's no rationality to choose one or the other, but it's just Gashmias, the choice of the Jew is with invested the free choice of Hashem. And therefore, in a Jewish person's body, you're actually, if you hold him, I'm a little afraid to hold him after this speech, but if you hold him, you would be holding the essence of God. Not his soul. His soul is secondary to his body because his soul does not have the free choice essential quality of God. Only his physical flesh does. It has it's a runner-up for being chosen because it's in the physical world. That's already sort of like a fit playing field to harness the atzmus, but not every single thing in the physical world has the atzmus attached to it. Only that which he chooses from the physical world, which primarily is the body of a Jew, and then all the things he's going to do with that body, right? Holy things that are going to promote God's choice. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not talking about, there is differences between things in Gashmias, like there's man, animal, but I'm not talking about that part of the Gashmias. I'm talking about the Gashmias itself. In that, there's no difference between you and a rock, right? And so that part of the matter, which is he chooses, which is you, that is all of a sudden a harnessing the essence of God, which not one entity in the world, not even the soul, can have access to that. So therefore, if you're worried about the body, how's he going to find godliness without the agency of the soul? On the contrary, poor soul doesn't have nothing on the body when it comes to accessing the true godliness. And that's what we're saying here, that the body of a Jew, it has the choice of God's essence in it. Therefore, specifically the physical nature of your body, it's much deeper connected to God on another plane of divinity than the soul, than any kind of connection to God you can get through the light of your soul. Because your soul is light, and therefore it only deals in light. And light is light stuff. Turning the page, specifically in the physicality of the body, carries this wondrous essence which is higher than the soul. And yeah.
Just to continue the puns, you're saying that the body has nothing on the soul. So the soul has nothing on the body. Because the body is actually on the soul.
There you go. Looking at footnote 18 for a second. And part of the sort of proofs of this wild statement is that, at least according to the Ramban, right? And if you read the Rambam the way the Rebbe reads him, you can probably in some way come to the same conclusion. But we, as in Chassidus, on this machloikis, we hold like the Ramban, famously. And that is, what is the final reward of the end game of the Jewish adventure on planet Earth? And so the Rambam says that we're going to eventually go and become released from our bodies, and we'll experience the Olam Haba as spirit. And the Ramban says that's not the end final reward. The final reward is you're going to be reincarnated. And on the Adarabah, that all the souls that have been elevating, like Moshe and Avram and all the tzaddikim have been elevating every day for thousands of years and going higher and higher and higher in Gan Eden and experiencing the bliss of that all that Gan Eden can afford, they're going to be rewarded by being put into a body in Tchias HaMesi. Because all the godliness that they get up there doesn't touch the level of atzmus, which they can only get in their physical bodies. And that very psak of the Ramban, right, is a proof of this notion that the body contains higher levels than the soul, because it's the ultimate reward is the body. And also, we have a statement that comes from Chassidus, and he brings many places where it's quoted, down in footnote 18, that in the future, opposite as it is today, when we're living in this sort of crooked and unclear world, the soul will actually benefit and live off and be nourished by the body in the future. Right now, of course, God forbid, if a person loses their soul, their body decomposes. The body is requiring the soul to enliven it at the moment. because we're like sort of living in a crooked, upside down world. But in the end of days, it'll be the exact opposite. The body will reveal its true source, which is the essence of God, which is not a derivative, right? We spoke about it in the class this morning in Basi Lagani. The idea of the even the Or Ein Sof is that it's something which is coming off of Hashem's essence, right? And therefore it's shining off his essence, and it requires Hashem's essence to be there in order for there to be the revelation of the Or Ein Sof. It's not, so to speak, an independent entity, like seemingly. Where, right? So the idea is that the body in its source, therefore, which is like the essence of Hashem, it is an independent entity. It's not dependent on anything else. Just like Hashem's, so to speak, body is independent and does not require something to enliven it. So too the body, even though we don't see its true greatness yet, in its source, it comes from the body of Hashem, and therefore it possesses the ability of the Atzmus to be independent and not requiring anything to enliven it. And therefore, when that will be revealed, its independent Atzmus will be sort of the steady player, and the soul, which is like light, will require the body to be there in order to continuously enliven the soul. And therefore, that's what we say, that in the future, the soul will be nourished by the body. Right now, because the body is not clearly revealing its true self, the essence is not fully revealed. It was for a hot minute there when Hashem gave us the Torah, or before the sin of the snake and so forth. In other words, the world tasted like seconds of this, but in general, we messed up the purity of the body. It doesn't reflect, unless you're like tzaddik gamor, etc., but their bodies don't decompose, etc. Maybe some of them don't even die, like Eliyahu Hanavi, etc. But except for very rare cases, the body does not harness the pure Atzmus, its true source, and therefore it decomposes, and therefore it needs to be enlivened by the light. But in the future, when we'll finish the birur, the body will be perfect. It will encompass its true source, which is the essence. Then Adrabah, it's the boss, and the soul will need it, which is this eternal presence, to get its nourishment from. Clear?
So basically, Adam Kadmon, that body, rectified body.
Yeah. Sure. Adam Arishon, Adam Kadmon. Okay. Moving along. Koach ha'atzmus shebaguf misgale dafke b'tekufa shel hastara. Now, if you want to harness this quality of your body, you need one little thing. You need to get rid of all the light. This power of the essence of the body reveals itself specifically when there is a period of concealment. Kasher ora neshama eino meir begilui. When the light of the soul is not shining so much, that's the only time we can actually make out and even realize that we have this other koach inside of us. And he gives an example. Look at footnote 19. He says, Al derech hamavur b'mesiras nefesh hu ba'ekev yosem berosh. We talk about this idea that who are the bali mesiras nefesh, the ones who are just willing to go in battle. That's not necessarily the chachamim. It's not necessarily the brightest guys, because the brightest guys, they're busy with the giloim. Their mind is like, they sort of are so excited about the presence and the revelation of God that it doesn't occur. They're not the first ones to stand up and say, I'll die for you, God. In other words, they have to do a bigger avoda than a simple soldier who basically has this Kabbalah soul, because why? He's not busy with great understanding. So by him, in other words, just like the foot of the body is the one that if someone says, you're gonna feel this fire, you're not gonna stick your head into the fire. You're gonna stick your foot into it, because the foot is like no feeling. And therefore it's the first one that's able to sort of take the dive into experiencing the Mesiras Nefesh, which is like the true koach of the soul, which is beyond intellect. The mind doesn't have a revelation of Mesiras Nefesh as much as the foot does. And therefore, in a general sense, when your soul is sort of bright and shining, which is the summer, or even it's a little bit shining in every other month of the year besides Tevis, it's harder to access the pure foot of the soul, which is just the body as it is, right? Because when there's any light involved, it's hard to make out your koach of Mesiras Nefesh. And therefore, it requires a certain darkness to be in the world in order to access the true nature of your soul. excuse me, the true nature of your body, I should say. Why? Because only then can you recognize the power of the atzmus, which is defined by something which is not limited by any revelation. In other words, revelation has a certain limitation. Like, for example, think about your brain, your ideas, common sense. If it makes sense, you'll do it. If it doesn't make sense, you won't do it. The idea of doing something, even though it doesn't make sense, shows on something which is of unlimited, right? So if your mind and your rational being is present, then it's going to block irrationality, right? So whenever anytime there's light and there's like revelation, that's going to block, like you said the other day, you're blinded by the light. Because the light is shining there, right? You're stuck with dealing with some things that make sense, limitation, because it's rational. You'll only do it if it makes sense. You're working with calculations. Only when there's no light, then you can actually reveal the incalculable, something that doesn't make any sense. So it's a very weird like oxymoron that's going on. The highest level of divinity shows up when there's no revelation around to block it. And that's why we see the simple Jews are the ones that are ready to die for God. Yeah.
This is basically connecting to the Shita of Shammai, no? In Chanukah.
Why?
Well, isn't that he goes down in lights? Saying that to have this ultimate revelation is when there's no candles.
Nice. I like that. That's great. Okay. Cool.
That's why it's in Tevet also. When Chanukah is Rosh Chodesh Tevet is during Chanukah.
That's what the Slicha started with. That the whole Tevis is a Hanukkah because Rosh Chodesh. Very good. So, but as you're saying, like that's sort of like a messianic view of things. When we go like Beis Shammai.
The Rosh Chodesh was on the moon is
Right now, yeah, I'm with you. I'm trying to wrap my mind around your brilliance. So right now, when we go like Hillel, what are we promoting? We're promoting light, and we're all about it, right? In fact, the word Hillel, Balu Neros, it means light. Whereas Shammai, it says in Chassidus, it means a Shammai is someone who's measuring every step. He's talking about sort of looking for removing the revelation and finding the limitations. Anyway, beautiful. So Zoe Mashmus Apanimi Shal Guf Nenem Neguf. Now we can come back to these famous words. The body benefits from one body. When does a body benefit from another body? Esther and Achashverosh in Teves, right? That's when he took her into the chambers, and that's when this lashon comes out. That guf means the atzmus, like we see that there's something called the gufei halachas, like the essence of the law, or gufa de malka, the body essence, the body of the king, and that essence has hana, right? Hana shel etzem elokus. That's a pleasure, right? Benefit from one body to another. The essence has a pleasure, and it's when does the pleasure of the essence come out? It doesn't have a pleasure by removing darkness so that the soul can shine, right? Because that's a whole other avoda, that we do avoda with the guf for the sake of the light. Remember, that's what we said was sort of like the little less mature, deeper understanding of the tzimtzum. That the tzimtzum has the body, the tzimtzum, the darkness has a function. But the function is for the sake of the light, for showing me how light can even overcome darkness, right? That's like sort of the present-day understanding of the victory of Hanukkah. The light will overcome, right? But the reality is that's not what gives Hashem his true hana. Hashem does not have hana from removing the darkness so that the light can shine. He rather, like you said, he has the ultimate Shammai Dika hana of the future when there's no more light, right? It's not about the light at all, but rather from the goof, this aspect of you that is not busy with light in the first place. When the body itself gets transformed to holiness. We're not going to say it gets transformed to light. It gets transformed to holiness. The icicle will shine. And when does one body benefit from another body? When it's cold, right? In the month of Tevis, in the month of total and utter concealment, when you get down to the point that all you have is your Mesiras Nefesh. There's no like seichel left. So really, there's a month of Mesiras Nefesh, and I guess that's really how the Rebbe taught us to celebrate Hanukkah, right? I mean, it's our Hanukkah. It's not like other people's Hanukkah. Hanukkah was like, used to be like a nice family holiday. You come and you sit in front of the candles, you share some gifts. Like Hanukkah is a crazy marathon in Chabad. And the Rebbe's like hitting the whip like every day. What, you should increase, and you should increase in like in beating yourself to a pulp, one army base after the next, up till the middle of the night. Like this type of Mesiras Nefesh in your conduct of Mifsuim is an unusual way to celebrate Hanukkah, right? But that's what the Rebbe is trying to say, that this is the Indian. Like, forget about your light. What are you looking to sit and learn Torah? Forget about it. Go find the coldest place in the world where there's one Jew and he doesn't have a menorah, and you're going to spend your whole, and you'll come home at 2:00 in the morning and light your menorah. You know, like that's your Hanukkah. It's a Mesiras Nefesh. He trained us how to have a Hanukkah of Mesiras Nefesh. I think we'll hold here before we start the next chapter. Pass them in.
Aber das Geschmackssache.
It is Geschmack.
Like the metaphor of the foot. It's also the heel.